Hi, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is a comprehensive prophet's manual, and this is chapter 17, and this is called My First Experience in Prophecy. At the beginning of this chapter, I want to share my first experience in prophecy. I grew up, as you've understood, in a Baptist church. I was saved when I was 8 years of age, and I was about 12 years of age when we had a group of people from our church going to fly in the outback in a small six-seater plane. And they were going to fly around different country towns in Australia and share the gospel with white folk, but mainly Aboriginals in these country towns. And Aboriginals are the indigenous people of a town. And I went down the airport and I, uh, I wanted to go on the plane and go and share the gospel because I wanted to be an evangelist. And I was asking my mum, and my mum said I couldn't go. My pastor was at the airport to see these people off, and he was a Baptist pastor, but he was Pentecostal, and he just wasn't allowed to preach on the gifts in his Baptist church, but he spoke in tongues and prophesied. And I begged the pastor, asked him, could you convince my mum and let me go on the plane? And he said, you can't go on the plane today, but if you want to go on a plane and preach to people, I can see your church taking you down to a plane one day and seeing you off, and you going to preach the gospel. And I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know what prophecy was. I didn't understand what prophecy was. But my mother told me years later, when I became Pentecostal, that my Baptist pastor was Pentecostal, and that was a prophecy. Um, my mother always felt for a mother, and a mother was a white witch, and she always wanted her mother to become a Christian, and that scripture that I used earlier in the book, a bruised reed, he won't quench a flickering flame. He won't a flickering flax. He won't quench. That was the scripture he used for my mother's mother, saying that the Lord, he said to her that in her latter years, when she's old, she's going to give her life to the Lord. And my mum saw her mother give her life to the Lord in the last 6 months of her life. In her 80s, she was 85 when she gave her life to the Lord. My mum held on to that prophecy for all those years and was able to see that. So this Baptist pastor said some really amazing prophecies. I haven't been down to the airport with a church seeing me off yet. I haven't gone on an overseas trip where I have friends in the family, friends in the church come and see me off. But I'm hoping one day when I go on an international trip to America, and I've got a schedule lined up for me to speak. I'm hoping that friends in the church, at least 6 of them, will come down to the airport and say goodbye to me. So I hold on to that, and that's what prophecy is. It's something for you to hold on to, something for you to be romantic about. It's something that is similar to romance. It holds the flame in your heart. And so that was my first experience uh, in prophecy. Also, this can be understood as my first experience prophesying. And so this has got a dual meaning. And I'll share a couple of stories from early in my taxi driving days when I told that guy that his brother was dying. Back in the taxi driving days, I was driving night shift, and I pulled up outside this nightclub, and it was about 15 taxis back in the line, and this young girl and a friend come and jumped in my taxi and said, we skipped all the other taxis. We thought we'd jump in your taxi. I said, that's fine. And we pulled off, and all the way home to one of the girls' places, the girls were chatting excitedly and happily. And as we dropped off the other girl, as I pulled out of the driveway, I said, you know, all the way home with your girlfriend, you're putting on a face. You you don't really feel that happy, um, and you don't really mean what you're saying. You're just putting on a good face, because when you go home, you're going to take an overdose of pills and kill yourself. And she said, how do you know that? I said, well, that's why you skipped all the taxis, because Jesus, who's my friend, wants to save your life. Now, what's got you into a state where you want to kill yourself? And she said that her boyfriend had broken up with her and said he only wants to be friends, but now he won't be friends. And she doesn't want to live because he was everything to her. And and I was able to pull the taxi over at her place and speak to her for an hour and turn off the meter and just speak to her an hour and for an hour until I was comfortable that she wasn't going to go inside and kill herself. You may look at that and you may say that that was a coincidence. You may say, well, that's just lucky. I'll tell you in this book that the world used the word lucky instead of the word blessed. And the root word of lucky is Lucifer. And so when you say to someone, good luck, you're saying, may Lucifer bless you. And so it wasn't lucky that she got in my taxi. She was blessed that she got in my taxi because she's still living. I believe a lot of girls, a lot of women don't overdose properly when they take pills. Um, it takes a certain number of pills to kill you, and a lot of women get that wrong. I only say women because men often use a gun or some violent force like hanging themselves or using a gun. Men, when they suicide, they have more success. I've been told in the past. So that saved her life. I remember one day in my taxi, I had six people in a row. As I dropped someone off and I picked up the next person, six people, every single person that got in my taxi, I prophesied over. And I was at the string of five in a row, six in a row. I knew everyone was coming to the Lord or getting a message of the Lord. I knew the Lord was really, the glory of the Lord was really manifesting in my taxi that day. This guy, a young guy, got in my taxi and I pulled off and I said, and why has Jesus Christ got you in my taxi today? And he says, oh, no, I've had it. I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, it's probably because of my grandma's prayers. And I said, what do you mean about your grandma's prayers? She said, oh, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons. She said, it's no good for me. I said, you need to go home and throw that game out. That's an evil game. And she said, yeah. My grandmother would agree with that. And I said, I bet your grandmother's been asking you to give your life to Jesus. And he says, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. And I said, well, let's not think about it. Let's do it. Just I'll lead you in prayer and you can give your life to Jesus and make your grandma happy. And so I led him to the Lord and I said, when you get out of the taxi, go into your house and ring up your grandma and say, the taxi driver just led you to the Lord in a sinner's prayer. and you want to know what to do now. And he said, will she understand that? And he said, yeah, well, that's what she's been praying for all these years. She's been saying to you for 10 years that she's praying for you. And he said, how do you know all this? And I said, I know these things. And so this is one of my taxi customers that I led to the Lord, but it was the grandma's prayers and that got him in that taxi that day. And it just so happened to, I had to run on prophetic encounters to set me up for that one, because I just got so confident, I got so cocky that I came out with those words as he got in the cab. Why did Jesus Christ put you in this cab today? And that's a pretty bold thing to be saying as a taxi driver to your customer. And so um, I've been walking in the prophetic for 30 years, and I've been in the office of prophet for about 15. And I will share with you here, I may not have shared it before, and I may not share it in 55 chapters. I'm not aware of what's going to come and what the chapters are at the moment, but it can take 10 to 15 to 20 years for you to move in prophecy before you are promoted into the office of prophet. So get used to prophesying, get used to delivering prophecies, because you're going to have a lot of experience to come into the office of prophet. A lot of people mistakenly assume, and a lot of prophetic training groups don't tell people, but people mistakenly assume that once you can prophesy that you're a prophet. And once you prophesy, you're not a prophet. You're a prophet in training, or you're a trainee prophet, but you're certainly not a prophet when you can prophesy. Even a pigeon can prophesy to me. Even a cat or a dog that I pass can prophesy to me, and they're not prophets. And just because you are sitting in medical school training to be a doctor doesn't make you a doctor. You may understand some of the things that doctors understand, but you certainly can't get a scalpel out and start cutting into a person when you're at medical school. So just like someone in medical school learning medicine can't use a scalpel and cut someone open, the same as you learning to prophesy and beginning to prophesy can't call yourself a prophet. And yet hundreds and thousands of people assume that they are, just because of the faulty teaching done in some prophetic training schools. So I hope you're encouraged by that. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories, and that's my life as a prophetic person. I'm just always delivering mail to people. I'm dropping off my Krispy Kreme donuts to people and blessing people and making people happy. And that's because I've got a gift of encouragement, and I love speaking to people. One of the reasons why I'm so prolific when it comes to prophesying is that for most of my life I haven't had friends, and most of my life I've been lonely. And when I haven't had friends, I've just been talking to strangers and interacting with strangers to get my social interaction. And many of those times I've been prophesying to strangers. So I'm a little different to many people, and you may find as you are called to be a prophet that you might be lonely, that no one understands you, you're misunderstood, and there's all sorts of characteristics. And if you want to look into the personality that you may possess as a prophet, I've got a book called 22 Signs That You're Called to Be a Prophet. And you may look at all the dimensions of how you're feeling and all your personality characteristics that would define you as a prophet. And one of them is rejection and loneliness, being misunderstood, and people thinking you're weird, and being passionate for Jesus, being intense, all sorts of different personality characteristics. So they're my first experiences in prophecy.